Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. Thank you guys for joining us on this Friday night. We got a really fun episode, especially if you are a Braves fans. We are going to do kind of an early trade deadline primer. The trade deadline is on August 2nd or 3rd. They moved it back. It used to be July 31st, but it's right there in early August. We're about 5-6 weeks, 5.5 weeks away from it. And the Braves, they don't have a ton of needs, but they are going to make moves. Alex Anthopoulos has made a trade. Every member as the GM of the Braves with World Series aspirations, you can expect the same, whether it's a starting pitcher, another bat. I don't think the needs are as great as they have been in years past. This roster is pretty complete, but you can always get better even if it's just a specialist or a bench player or a back end starting pitcher that can eat innings. Like they're going to make some moves, but we're basing a lot of this off of an article from The Athletic. Go look at it. Jim Bowden, he did 100 trade targets. So we're going to talk about a lot of these guys. And I wanted to start out with a guy that was actually from the Braves on this list, which doesn't make a lot of sense. The Braves have a complete roster. We just said they have World Series aspirations. Why in the hell would they want to trade anybody on their roster, especially when pretty much half their roster is full of all-stars? So it was peculiar, but I'm not going to bash Bowden too much, even though Bowden does come up with some terrible trade hypotheticals. If you follow him, they're just absolutely awful. It's like this guy's been covering baseball for 30 years and he doesn't know how to trade work. I'll never understand how him and David O'Brien, come up with the worst trade. But I'm going on a tangent on that. We don't have to talk about that. I'm not going to bash him too much on this particular topic because 100 potential trade targets in this trade market where you only have 4 teams that are really completely out of it, and the Royals, A's, Rockies, and I don't know who the other team is off the top of my head. But you don't have a lot of teams out of it. So there's not Nationals. There's not a lot of teams that are going to be selling. And there's going to have to be, if trades are going to be made, some contender to contender trades. So a contender trading with another contender, maybe in opposite leagues. And this is what sparked this thing. The player is Travis d'Arnaud, the one Brave that made this list. It's understandable. He's a backup catcher. He's obviously could be a starting catcher. He was an all-star last year. The Braves have Sean Murphy. He's only going to keep catching more and more games, especially once we get out of the summer months and into September and October, providing that the Braves need to win those games. He's going to catch every game in October. You can pretty much write that in stone. He's going to catch every game in October. The Braves don't have a huge need for Travis d'Arnaud in that case. What do you think about that, Alex? I wrote an article on it already. Go visit the site, sportstalkatl.com. I gave my opinion. I'll obviously give my opinion in a second. But what do you think about the idea of trading Travis d'Arnaud to improve this roster in other areas?
Yeah, as always, guys, please go check out the website. Chase just mentioned it, sportstalkatl.com. All of these clips, if you are going to miss any of the show, Sports Talk ATL on YouTube, please subscribe. Yeah, listen. On the surface, this feels like, if a team was contending and it feels like a fan was like, yeah, Travis d'Arnaud is the target, because it does make a lot of sense for all the reasons that you just laid out. He isn't the primary catcher. Hell, he's not even the primary DH. And his role is almost more intangibly based than it is tangibly. Look, when he's on the field, he's so productive, but he's been hurt a lot of the year. And when he hasn't been hurt, he doesn't play that often because of the things you just said. In the playoffs, Sean Murphy is going to catch every single game because he's the best defensive catcher in baseball. Travis d'Arnaud is an invaluable piece of this clubhouse still, because the Braves place so much emphasis on the leadership aspect and the chemistry aspect of roster building. Travis d'Arnaud might be one of the last members of the clubhouse to get traded because of all those things. The guy's basically a second manager next to Brian Snitker. He's a fan favorite. He's a veteran in that clubhouse. He provides a lot of guidance for what is still somewhat a relatively young team. Talk about, just not going to happen. It's Travis d'Arnaud.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen for all those reasons. And I could give you 3 different reasons and I'll go into the other reasons. But yeah, the Braves put so much value on these clubhouse guys. You talk about Freddie Freeman and Dansby Swanson leaving. Travis d'Arnaud's now your longest tenured Brave. He is your veteran of the clubhouse. He's also a really good player, which is why I understand why teams probably will call. But if Alex Anthopoulos even picks up the phone, it'll be hung up and turned away because of those reasons you mentioned. He's also under contract for next year. So he's got a club option for next year. So the Braves still view him as a valuable piece of the team, not just this year, but next year. He can DH if a guy like Marcell Ozuna starts to struggle. Because, yes, Marcell Ozuna is hitting great right now, but there's a chance, and I wouldn't say a good chance, but you could say a 30-40% chance Ozuna starts to struggle again, and all of a sudden d'Arnaud's your primary DH. Especially, they're going to go with the hot hand in the playoffs. So having extra guys and having that depth is invaluable. Beyond that, listen, you don't have to think too far in the past, where the Braves, didn't have catching depth and were starting Kevon Smith and calling up William Contreras way too early. That is a disaster. So not only that, Travis d'Arnaud is the ultimate insurance policy for Sean Murphy if he does suffer a significant injury. I mean, just imagine what would happen if Murphy suffered an injury, d'Arnaud was traded. Now you have Chadwick Tromp starting, and who the hell is your backup catcher? It's just the Braves, ever since that happened, have placed such an emphasis on having two catchers. I mean, they sent two to the All-Star last year in Contreras and d'Arnaud. They did not trade Sean Murphy to go. I mean, listen, he's going to catch most of the games. He should catch most of the games. He's going to catch the games in the playoffs. They did not trade Sean Murphy. They know how valuable having two catchers that can switch in and out as an insurance policy if one of them gets hurt. They both dealt with minor issues so far this season, and they just pick up right where each other leaves off. And that is something that very few, because the catcher position has been so devalued from an offensive perspective that there's not that many great catchers in the league. The Braves are one of the few teams that have two great catchers and have had two great catchers over the last 2 years. And they've made up a lot of, when you think about WAR and stuff like that, they made up a ton of wins over other teams at the catcher position. And they put such a strong value on that there's absolutely no way in hell that they are going to risk their catcher position turning into a zero if one of these guys gets injured. Because right now, if Sean Murphy gets injured, I feel 100% confident in Travis d'Arnaud stepping in. Is he going to be as good? No, but the drop-off won't be ridiculous. If you were to move d'Arnaud, who is on a team-friendly deal and everything like that, it would have to be, you would have to see the Braves suffer multiple injuries to the rotation and they trade d'Arnaud for maybe not a frontline guy, but a legitimate starting pitcher. That's about the only way. And it would have to be so many injuries. I still don't think they would do that. But so many things would have to happen that I understand what Bowden's thinking there. He had to come up with 100 guys. I mean, some of the guys on these lists are like Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. He's talking about teams that could fall out of the race and then have to recoup assets and recoup money and whatever. So I understand putting him on there for some reason, but I am telling you, as a Braves fan, as someone who pays attention to this team more than just about anyone that's not on the team, they're not trading Travis d'Arnaud.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Braves have the best catcher in Sean Murphy, and Travis d'Arnaud is undoubtedly a top 10 catcher if he's playing full time. I mean, he's better than 20 other full-time starters. So I see what you're saying or where Bowden's coming from. And imagine, if you were a fan of a team in need of a catcher, you're on a competing team with championship aspirations, and you're just looking around the league and you're like, oh, the Braves, I mean, they have two top 10 catchers. They could get rid of one of those guys. So on the surface level, it makes a lot of sense, looking outside in. But if you're from the Braves perspective, looking inside out, it makes absolutely no sense for all the reasons that we just said.
Especially since the Braves don't have these glaring holes that would need to be fixed for us to trade d'Arnaud. D'Arnaud is a luxury. There's no doubt about it. The problem is we have luxuries all around the diamond. There is no hole where we got to go patch up anything. As we're going to talk about this as we continue in this show, there's not a lot the Braves have to fix. We're going to talk about the needs. We're going to talk about who makes sense, but there's not a ton that they have to do to make this team. They could do nothing and still probably be the best team in baseball. Now, I don't suggest that. I think you want to make your team as good as possible because anything can happen in October, but they could do nothing. So trading away d'Arnaud makes no sense also in the fact that they don't have anything that they need so desperately that they have to take this risk, because now all of a sudden you're taking a risk that you could have a hole in the lineup. You could have a hole in the lineup if Sean Murphy goes down. Why take that risk? There's no reason to take that risk. For that reason, there's no way he gets traded other than on top of everything else we've said.
Yeah, just one final point. I'll take up the last minute of the segment or show. I will play devil's advocate. I will pretend that the Braves are trying to trade Travis d'Arnaud. Obviously, you said it would have to be for, something close, a fringe frontline starter, a legitimate, starting pitcher. That's if everything on the rotation goes wrong, goes awry. Max Fried, Kyle Wright don't come back. Michael Soroka is not reliable. AJ Smith-Shawver proves that he's not the guy. Jared Schuster, you don't want to be going into the playoffs with Jared Schuster starting playoff games. But, so much would have to go wrong for that to happen. And it's not, impossible. It is highly unlikely. I'm just trying to lay out the things.
I think you'd even have to go a step further. I even think if all those things did happen, they still wouldn't do it. You'd have to get another injury. Like you'd have to have Spencer Strider go down or Charlie Morton go down or Bryce Elder go down. Because listen, the Braves won with basically 3 starters and a bunch of relievers in 2021. They did not have this fantastic starting pitching staff, and they can do it again with a better lineup and bullpen. Coming up after the break, we're going to continue some Braves trade deadline talk.